believe that you are what you say you are. I need some intellectual answer, and in my case, I need a miracle. That's what they're saying. But remember, the last miracle they saw was free food. And so here they're saying, Jesus, I need another miracle. Come on, I'm hungry. Bring on some free food. I need a miracle. Our forefathers ate manna in the desert. There's the bread. It is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth, it's not Moses who has given you bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Sir, they said, from now on, give us this bread. Again, give us some bread. Okay, Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all that he has given me, but raise them up again at the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. Jesus is saying some things here that are hard for them to grasp. Okay, here you came from Nazareth. Okay, you were born in Bethlehem, and now you're saying you came from heaven. Keep going. Verse 41. At this the Jews began to grumble about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. They said, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say, I came down from heaven? Stop grumbling among yourselves, Jesus answered. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. And I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, they will all be taught by God. Everyone who listens to the Father and learns from him comes to me. No one who has seen the Father, except the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father. I tell you the truth, he who believes has everlasting life. I am the bread of life. And now it begins to take a turn. It begins to get weird. He says, your forefathers ate the manna in the desert, yet they died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven. At which time I think he was pointing right here. He goes, here is the bread from heaven, which a man may eat and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats this bread, he will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. Then the Jews began to argue sharply among themselves, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your forefathers ate manna and died, but he who feeds on this bread will live forever. He said this while teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. Now that is something that stretches people. And that's where we come to this crisis moment, because immediately after that we see these words. On hearing it, many of his disciples said, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? When you come to that place where Jesus says the thing that offends you, you will realize that the barrier keeping you from trusting him is not your intellect. You don't need to know how Jesus is going to give you his flesh to eat. You need to first deal with the disgusting nature of what this claim is. And what is he really trying to say? And who is this guy anyway that he would claim such a thing? It's a gut reaction. It's an emotional thing. And that's the second barrier. People's barriers to trust sometimes are intellectual, but sometimes you can kind of get past that. But what's really going on below the surface is this level 2 barrier. It's the emotional barrier. And you don't even know that maybe it's the emotional barrier that is making you have that intellectual barrier. It's because you are somehow disgusted by what Jesus has said, somehow offended by what he said, that you're unwilling to even accept the answers that are acceptable at the intellectual level. And there you are down there at the emotional level. If you're writing down, put that as your next blank. And somehow, some way, something must outweigh your level of offense and disgust in order for you to hang around with Jesus. Some people just simply walked away. They just walked away. But if you want to stay with him, something's got to outweigh it. Listen, when I first became a father, I learned the glorious wonder that is an infant's diaper. And it is a wonder. There are things that you find in that place that you don't find anywhere else on the planet. Glorious, wonderful packages of joy. And in my case, I recall there was a moment when I had somehow received the responsibility of actually doing the diaper. I think I was home without Jen. I think she was at work or shopping or something. And I was there by myself. And I opened up that Christmas package to discover the most insanely acrid, pungent, horrific stench I had ever encountered. And it welled up from inside me. My stomach down here tightened, and my throat began to pulsate, and I felt the retching action happening, and I thought, I need to get out of this room. And for those of you who have never had a child, don't. Because I'm just joking there. But you get to this place where it's like, I have never experienced something this disgusting before in my life. And I tell you what, it was everything in me. I wanted to just walk out of that room and leave that thing right there. No, I didn't. I was amazed at myself. In that moment, the absolute horrific disgustingness of my experience and the aroma in the room, which had so permeated everything, and I believe still remains to this day in that place, did not bother me as much. You know why? Because there was my child, and I was trying to care and love him. This other thing was something else, and my experience of it was my experience of it, and sure, it was bad, but I'm staying there because I love him. And so I did what I needed to do, and into the diaper genie, and that thing was never the same again. And then I got a new one out, and we got him all taken care of, and it was all better, but it was because of my love for him that I was willing to endure the disgustingness that came from him. Sometimes Jesus will offend you. And if you want to get to a place where you can